Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to Kardec Radio, where we are always nourishing our souls with the study of Spiritism. Welcome, everybody. This is the Prayer for Peace, 6 p.m., Sunday evenings, and I'm Teresa Castro, the host for the prayer. Thank you all for joining me. And today, before our prayer, our message is coming out of this book, A Full Life, by Joanna de Ângelis, psychographed by Divaldo Franco. And it's one of the newer books with the English translation. So if you'd like to follow along, if you have the book, it is chapter 12, and it's entitled, Be Grateful. So of course, I'm not going to be reading the whole chapter. It's just a preview to kind of trigger some interest that you might want to read the whole chapter on your own. So this is what Joanna has to tell us about gratitude. She says that gratitude has traditionally been defined as the act of showing appreciation for a benefit received. Makes sense. Certainly, it is the way to express recognition for the good that has been done to us. It is an act of good manners, the product of social education. But a show of appreciation does not always imply a sentiment of gratitude, which runs deeper. Every time individuals show appreciation, they promote progress and change their own emotional landscape while strengthening the feeling of community. Very interesting. New information about gratitude and its effects, not only for ourselves, but for the community. And so she goes on to say that everything that exists is the result of exchanges and continual transformations in the form of complex cooperative mechanisms, that is, processes of reciprocating. So she goes on to say, so to give back is to value what was received. So this process of reciprocating, to give back is to value what was received, the giver and the circumstances, demonstrating that one is an active part of the community, adding vitality and meaning. In the moral realm, however, due to the instinct of self-preservation, human beings cling to their own interests, wrongly believing that they deserve favors, although their insatiable ego is always expecting more without ever feeling the need to give. So this is where we go wrong. The ego takes over. And now she kind of compares it when we talk about charity and material versus moral charity. She says about gratitude, it is easy to show external material gratitude, which does not possess the qualities that make it genuine, such as feelings of affection and a real desire to build the good wherever one might be. That is why gratitude may be expressed by looking at someone in a certain way, by offering a timely word, or by giving a meaningful smile. So she kind of compares it here with what we learn about moral charity, right? That there's the material charity, which is needed and should not be minimized. It's helpful, it does good for people. However, we should not think of charity only in the material realm, but also in the moral sense of charity. And she says so about gratitude as well, that, you know, instead of sending this big fancy thank you gift, or even sometimes a card that's all decorated and filled with words, is that she's saying, you know, it's gratitude when we can, you know, give a meaningful smile to show our appreciation, offering a timely word. So it's that idea of being truly present for another person. And then she goes on to tell us or remind us about the story of Jesus carrying the cross. And when the guards pulled Cyrene of Oh no, he was the man of Cyrene. So it was Simon of Cyrene. That's it. That's the name. So they pulled him from the crowd because Jesus was fatigued and the cross was heavy and he kept falling. And so they forced this man to help Jesus. And so what Joanna tells us is that when Jesus noticed that his load had lightened, the master looked back and saw the man. So he saw Simon helping him. Jesus's tender and grateful look was so profound that Simon of Cyrene would never forget him. He started to love Jesus from that moment on and completely changed the course of his existence. And she goes on to say that Simon of Cyrene became the symbol of those who sacrifice themselves to help others in their darkest hour. And that at that moment, a wave of the Master's tenderness enveloped Simon and caused him to be reborn, to become a different man. So here we get a better sense of when she tells us about having deep gratitude affects another person and affects the community at large and is progress. And then she goes on to enlighten us some more. She says, we have never had so much knowledge and so many psychotherapeutic tools to help individuals with problems of their own creation. But even with all that, since we're unaccustomed to being kind and loving, still coming out of that animal kingdom, imprisoning the being in an unhealthy selfishness and constant, persistent depression. So this has an effect on our body, that when we're locked into just being so selfish, it goes beyond self-caring, but she says it's unhealthy. And this constant mood of depression, being down, saddened, morose, despair, it actually changes our physiological makeup because it has an effect on our hormones. And what's the result? It torments us, and we have difficulty loving, trusting, and giving of ourselves. So she goes on to help us to recognize gratitude in nature, right? Because we're told so often, if we want to understand God better, look to nature. If we want to understand who we are, where we come from, look to nature. So she says, a flower is a symbol of the plant's gratefulness to the humus that feeds its roots. A flower is a symbol of the plant's gratefulness to the humus that feeds its roots. Brilliance is the unrefined diamond's gratefulness to the tools that polished it. A molded metal object is grateful to the furnace that gave it beauty and purpose. A delicate butterfly fluttering in the air expresses the gratitude for no longer being a slow crawling caterpillar. So she reminds us everything changes and improves, even when it seems to have degraded, which is only a transition. Let's hold fast to our times right now. Therefore, be grateful for the pain that shows you your fragile reality. And I think we can all appreciate current events revealing the human frailness. So Joanna also brings here in this chapter about the lepers that Jesus healed. And it's in the New Testament. And I'm sorry, I don't have the chapter and the verse. But essentially, there are 10 lepers that approach Jesus, and he heals them, or helps them to heal. And but later, only one returns to say thank you, that has gratitude. So she just reminds us that even for Jesus, so we should not be too surprised when people don't demonstrate ingratitude, and then help us to realize, how do we at times not express gratitude? How do we maybe thoughtlessly are ungrateful? We maybe not do it intentionally, but to awaken ourselves to how are we behaving. And she says, she's reminding us once again that it is true that everything is transitory, but gratitude renders you indebted to the good angel who was at our side at the proper moment. I think that's so beautiful. It is true that everything is transitory, but gratitude renders us indebted to the good angel who was at our side at the proper moment. And she's, giving us some instruction, because she's saying, so when we see that person who's ungrateful, let us remember that they too have a good angel that is going to be at their side at the proper moment. So they will have their time. So no reason for us to become impatient or intolerant. But she says, go ahead and feel sorry, but they're too going to have their time, right? We're all doomed to perfection. She says, don't forget it. So let us remember that. She's telling us, don't forget it. We all have that proper moment that we can be helped. And thank you to those guides, mentors, spirits who are there for us at that proper moment. And she says, as for yourself, do all the good you can without expecting a reward, because your reward is the satisfaction you feel for what you have done. And we all know that when we've helped someone, when we've felt that in our heart, that deep appreciation and gratitude, it's a good feeling, and it's enough that no amount of money can, there's no price tag on that kind of sensation, that feeling, because it's lasting and it becomes a part of us. So she says, the joy felt by those who turn on a light is the blessing of enlightenment. And then she closes, that Jesus' resurrection is the most beautiful testimony of love and gratefulness to those who killed his body, because without death, there could not have been the glorious resurrection. So again, just reminding us, sometimes there looks like a downgrade initially, but there is that beauty. So again, the law of destruction, the law of progress, and that progress always follows. And I think one of the key points she brings out in this chapter is she says that the act of loving results from our trust in God, and consequently in all creatures, whoever they are. So that idea that gratitude, stems from that deep, I think, embodiment, knowing, practicing, living inside of us. The most important commandment that Jesus tells us is love God with all your heart, mind, and soul, above all else, and your neighbor as yourself. And as we have this trust, we can express gratitude. That we can hook into trust and loyalty, faithfulness to God, and the gratitude that is manifested as a result of that. So thank you again, Joanna de Ângelis, Divaldo Franco, and all those elevated spirits who match our one step by 1,000. We thank you. We love you. So let us now center ourselves as we enter into prayer. We open our hearts and our minds, trusting that nothing falls out, but maybe something good will fall in. Mother, Father, God, and with this beautiful message of gratitude, we begin this prayer by thanking you. from that deep place within our heart, within our being, that we know is true. And we thank you for not only the opportunities that we recognize, but those challenges and hardships that are often difficult to see as blessings. But we thank all the spirits and all the inspiration that we are guided to in support of remembering the idea of being faithful and looking upward through these trials and tribulations, turning to prayer, turning to meditation, turning to inner reflection, and most importantly, trust that we are not all lost, not falling into despair, and role modeling that for others. And we think now to our brothers and sisters who are facing some harsh trials, those countries with devastating challenges on very basic levels of food, shelter. Basic needs being met. We know that God supplies for all God's creatures, so let us have trust and faith and do what we can to help. And maybe we can't help someone across the world, but let us help that person next to us. And let us remember the power of our thoughts. We thank you. And with humility and respect, we humbly ask permission to close this prayer. And so be it. Thank you, brothers and sisters, for joining me in this short program of a message followed by a prayer for peace. May we all go forward into our week experiencing peace on some level. And let us remember that we most often feel this peace when we help others. Many blessings, and I hope to see you next week. Thank you so much.